town of Oak Park hummed quietly in the nostalgic haze of the 1950s, where shadows were long and secrets whispered through the cobbled streets. On a cool evening, only the glow of a single marquee light punctuated the inky blackness, a beacon drawing teens like moths to a flame. The Grimes sisters, Patricia and Barbara, caught within its grasp, seated themselves eagerly for the show, unaware of the nightmare that would follow. Inside the theater, the film unspooled against the screen in flickering black and white, casting shimmering reflections across marbled pillars and velveteen seats. But outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it an unsettling chill that crept beneath coats and chilled bone. To the cognizant few, it whispered faint warnings that those inside the cinematic realm were oblivious to. As the credits rolled and the crowd dispersed into the frigid night, a blanket of unease remained. Neighbors recalled seeing the sisters walking arm in arm towards home, laughter punctuating the quiet. Yet as morning arrived, the real unfolding horror gripped the town. Patricia and Barbara were nowhere to be found, lost between wintry sidewalks and spectral alleyways. The following days at Oak Park Police Headquarters were saturated with tension, persistent in its grip, as officers struggled to piece together the fractured timeline of that unassuming night. An eerie light filled the investigation room, a haziness exacerbated by cigarette smoke hanging thick across the ceiling. Detective O'Connor, with his trench coat draped as heavily on his shoulders as the case weighed on his conscience, consulted the scant clues left behind. Rumors rushed in like tides, a swirl of conjecture and cryptic sightings, each more impossible than the last. Late night specters of the Grimes sisters wandering the deserted park, plaintive cries from the depths of shadows. An eyewitness account told of ghostly forms beneath a railway overpass, lingering briefly before dissolving into dark. Disturbed yet incredulous, O'Connor couldn't dismiss these claims entirely. The void of evidence whispered of stories unbounded by rational physics. To sow an air of familiarity amid the unfamiliar, he brought in his trusted confidant, Caroline Mayhew, an investigator knowledgeable in matters fringed with macabre mysteries. Caroline Mayhew arrived in Oak Park with a curious blend of skepticism and open-minded curiosity for which she was renowned. Her notebook and recording device were priorities, as she established a temporary command center southwest of town. Against the sound of trains methodically clattering past her hotel, Caroline spread yellowing newspaper clippings in search of patterns. Caroline interviewed locals, carefully drawing out accounts tinged with trepidation. Older residents spoke of similar disappearances, a veil of darkness descending upon youths seen last amidst silver screens and smoky alleyways. Whispers spoke of a malevolent presence threading through the town's very history. As twilight descended, she stood at the edge of the park where the sisters were last due home. The wind's chilling fingers tugged at her coat, and the rustle of leaves spoke with distant voices, urging her deeper into mysteries, refusing to be assembly lines solved. A guttural sensation lingered that forces of darkness, unique to Oak Park's once innocent facades, were orchestrating its secrets. Hours turned into deepening twilight as Caroline found herself increasingly drawn to the railway overpass, highlighted in numerous recountings. The skeletal structure loomed, a sentinel of hollow iron frame and concrete, soaked eternally in shadows cast by moonlit nights. As she stepped nearer, icy dread pricked at her skin, as if the air itself conspired against intruders to this forgotten terra. The underpass lay abandoned save for echoes of the trains above, unnerving in its steady mechanical cadence, a dirge of industry indifferent to human heartache. Caroline paused, her breath joining the frosty exhalations as she strained to catch whispers of cries laced within history's backdrop. A crackle nearby broke the silence, her heart racing as she shone a flashlight into the gloom. The raw iron beams absorbed light, but could not mask the presence of ethereal outlines, spirits frozen mid-gesture like echoes from the past. Rattled yet intrigued, Caroline knew she had glimpsed the blurry countenance of the vanished, urging her onward to uncover the binding secrets only Oak Park dared conceal. Caroline's nightly sojourns were now relentless, and her findings only expanded with intrigue matching the growing unease within Oak Park. As she delved deeper into records of yore, studying the quiet terror of an almost forgotten era, inklings of the town's dark tapestry unthreaded before her. The legend of the Grimes sisters, Caroline had discerned, was an intricate pattern woven on a loom of shared memory and persistent myth. Disappearances echoed from past decades, all tied inexplicably to post-film disappearances on similarly cold nights. Participants became mere impressions on fogged windows and sepulchral shadows stalking the moonlit avenues. She combed through Oakland's library, dust motes suspended in the ambient slivers of light, tracing her fingers across texts filled with cautionary tales of restless spirits and portentous omens. The echoes reverberated, encouraging Caroline to widen her search, not just through the living, but also through the spectral narratives binding the town's secrets. On the quiet of a stark December night, Caroline was joined by Detective O'Connor at her request to trace peculiar footsteps of spectral import. Under the chalky glow of moonlight, figures appeared along the tree-lined avenue where icy mists danced like phantoms intent on possession. The ambience drew thick with tension as Caroline and O'Connor awaited the spectral procession of enigmatic potential below that moonlit kaleidoscope. Just as Caroline thought distances vast and infinite, the limbs of those spectral vestiges, so often beguilingly seen, neared, shimmering lightly at the periphery of sight. Instinctively, Caroline reached for the small voice recorder, detecting half fades of vague speech dancing between realms. together, they absorbed what seemed to be the echoes of long unresolved yearnings, intermittently manifesting, a dialogue of vanished souls reasserting their presence with uncanny clarity only on the cusp of midnight. Captivated by the witnessed communion with ghosts, Caroline orchestrated a meeting with Oak Park's elder historian, Mrs. Firth, known to untangle webs of time with poignant precision. By the hearth's flickering warmth in a wooden cot of old-world charm, Mrs. Firth recounted the unending cycle of enigmatic occurrence. With eyes that had aged yet still gleamed with cautious vigor, Mrs. Firth Diffulti painted tales of the sisters, whose likeness was seen on the trail of earlier stories and events. Those lost before their time often held residual connections, an unexplained discord between the worlds that defied finality. The stories bestowed to Caroline hinted at something much larger, a malevolence possibly rooted in long-standing injustice or forgotten grievance marking the town. The historian's tales became a foundation upon which Caroline fervently built her investigation come morning. Desperate to collate the all-too-real horror solidified within whispered narratives, Caroline's steps led her to the heavy iron gates of the Grimes sisters' resting ground, a burial site steeped deeply in onto the legends cast over Oak Park itself. The cemetery lay bathed in the harsh contrast of winter's grasp, each fallen leaf frozen as if time itself had paused on their descent. Eclipsed within this stark tableau, Caroline stood before the adorned stones of Patricia and Barbara, inscribed with youthful accounts of life cut brutally short. Whispered mysteries loomed large, bending the air around those persevering monuments where shadows converged and dipped into slumber. She knelt, sensitive to movements beyond immediate reality, the bracing cold carrying whispers long carried by the wind, the sisters' tales binding to this earth where secrets yet surfaced. With a ritual clarity, the air pulsed with the persistent enigma Caroline vowed to unravel before Oak Park claimed her too. Caroline's observations fueled debate within Oak Park's limited, yet tight-knit paranormal circles. A gathering at the community hall saw specialists in the field keen to add their findings to the widening puzzle, whose edges dared chance interaction with inexplicably shared human fears. Under the dull glow of pulpit-style lamps, attendees presented theories that curled between skepticism and belief: radio distress signals, drifting apparitions perceived on retro-tuned bands. Each fervently conveyed testament added density to the air, yarns woven that could either dissipate or pull tighter under growing suppositional tangents. Gravitating towards the heart of collected fervor, Caroline maintained her corner, framing herself as the intersection of ethereal truth, a keen receptor, ready to piece together a reality that perpetually evaded but beckoned close. Her quiet inquiry continued, pushing past derision to nest within deeper contemplation, where darkness flirted with illumination. Through chilling coincidences accentuating sights both observed and obscured. Caroline instinctively felt when shrouded forms yielded to exposure, the abstract transitioning into evidence that illuminated and shivered the deepest recesses of doubt. Her nocturnal dives into the concealed depths of Oak Park bore strikes against the veil that separated fables from truth. Accompanied by O'Connor, she followed residual tracks deep into an abandoned opera house on the edge of town, once vibrant but now forgotten, its grandiosity rendered haunting by disrepair. There within, the past and present formed uneasy companionships, unspooling storylines intertwined unnervingly between its fractured beams and peeling gilded frames. As Caroline illuminated with each cautious step, whispers grew louder, ephemeral voices welcoming her intrusion, not with discord, but subdued invitation. On balconies where ghosts perched and orchestras once roared, the sisters' silhouettes appeared. Beguilement turned firm conviction, directing this immersion within their sorrowful tale. As the ghostly ambience of the opera house dissipated into the night's relentless chill, Caroline braved her exploration's culmination with resolution sharpened by every carved path and echoed sentiment. The revelations gleaned and the threshold crossed were not only her own, but manifestations of a timeless script binding all life to these spectral continuities. Approaching Oak Park's heart, newly reawakened with tangible ghosts of evident entanglements, Caroline wielded a steadfast affinity for unbroken truths. The tapestry died both in awe and terror, each stitch an echo of manifestation through the aplomb of pursuit. Standing before her, as if in beckoning rapport, were the spectral forms of Patricia and Barbara, radiant and resplendent, not as ghosts dwelled in shadow, but as memories seared pure by the light of final acknowledgement. This was the fulcrum towards resolution, with Caroline poised to gather the last threads of legend into pellucid translucency. Faced with the sisters' ethereal embrace, a warmth filled Caroline's mind. A confounding duality of comprehension materialized as histories once masked converged with contemporary clarity to form coherent wholes. Relics of longing dissolved into newly bonded constancy. Passions unspoiled by temporal discord enlaced a shared affinity amongst the timeless wisdom they inhabited. The atmosphere was thick with quietude transformed, ambient energy shifted not with tension, but acceptance as the air itself moved. Elongated breaths from depths untraced, outlining a new legacy manifest. Caroline sensed within these new bonds space for both past and perpetual futures to be stitched again by kin and comfort. The elusive tailies converged into concrete finality, and in their essence retained a fulfillment in guardianship. In place of individuals long departed, Sheriff McGrady, truth keeper of whispered tailies, rose on behalf of the generations. Exhalation through renewed guardian pledges, the enjoined caretaker, blending history's lessons into coherent guidance, reaching beyond specter boundaries. The following morning came soft, yet heavy, punctuated by stillness layered through Oak Park, refusing the night its secrets. Enough remained yet suspended between reality and what stood suddenly visible, proximate intelligence, now dimmed into the texture of sunrise. Caroline knew her revelations would echo through the town, haunting quietude morphing within rooms, still rooms filled with somber vibrancy, transitioning through rich dialogue, underpinned by laughter reborn. Their once absent presence, long poised, now tangible, persistent memories, stepped anew amidst inscribed headlines, spectral reiteration through storytelling gestures. Caroline meticulously absorbed the remnant aura with gratitude, reflecting evolution's past and future dance within shared oral continuity. Within the grip of day unraveling nocturnes, Patricia and Barbara echoed external vigilance, thrust onto their shared journey, leaving lessons eternal, binding ephemeral truth as the real within myth-bound ethos. Caroline's departure marked another chapter, turned a convergence, edging emergent horizons, gentle sculpting immortal suspense, tributary adages meeting acceptance through and beneath shade-cast Elohims, where the tangible lingers masked before accustoming rationalizations. Behind her, Oak Park melded into other fragments, enhanced within memory's passageway, an illustration endless across aged stone and candlelight's grim reflection. The investigators' journey built and recalled amongst the burden shifts as once voiceless silhouettes edged closer to release. Caroline's own legacy nested intertwined, destined within the theater of chronicles alive with intangible emblems of dedication, embracing celestial ciphers, underpinning anew a palimpsest of future lore. These hidden archives were breathed into form amidst the everlasting cinematic eras, meeting bearable truths where shadows kept solace with their light, transfigured tenderness remembered by breath itself. As years unfolded, Oak Park's haunting became a legacy walled within time, voices carried, but not erased, minimizing limitations, transcending disbelief. Blessed by marked divergences, borne aloft, historic maps articulated timelines beyond mere conjecture, deciphering harbingers through the aisles of 7 cycles held timelessly adrift. Caroline remained the torchbearer amongst hallowed mortals and ethereal counterparts. She navigated perpetually between them, graced with the infinite mythology wherein silent ebbs and reels forged castaways syncretism, a citadel of knowledge reciting actively, memory suspended as tribute to those spanning genres. The echoes of the Grimes sisters entwined emblematically within the town's narrative, an existential spirit, undivided, wrought from the arcane ballads murmuring along the river's sullen banks, a facet translated by its endless review and affinity cast by continuums trekking agelessly forward, a town with a spectral embrace, composing melodies clad by travelers, affirming whispers, sown steadfastly through evolving dawns.